Hello everyone, my name is Kavya Sharma and welcome to Pragati Vichar Literature Festival. Today I have two really amazing panelists with us and the topic for today's session is From Dreams to Happiness, Role of Stories in Children's Life. So what could be a better panelist than both of us, both of you that we have today? You both have been working in the children's industry and publishing. So I'll be introducing Sonia ma'am first to our audience, and then we'll go to the next panelist, Dr. Tanu. And I hope you all are as interested as I am in diving in the session. But first, I would like to know, how do you feel, Sonia ma'am, being a part of PVLF today?
Oh, lovely. I always, anything that people want to talk about, books and children and reading is something that I love to be a part of. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here. Merry Christmas as we go along. And yeah, happy to be here. I'm glad you all are taking this initiative, and I hope it reaches lots and lots of parents, really, more than kids, because they can help the kids read. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, and I am glad that you like being part of initiatives that associate children, and I think that is the best fit for everybody. Your opinion about children's book is so important and so delightful for us because of the body of work that you've been part of. It's just mesmerizing. I would like to start by saying that. Dr. Tanu Nai, I would love to know your take about being a part of PVLF.
Everything which involves children's literature, you'd find me there, either lurking around or talking or sort of getting the children to read. You can look at the backdrop. You see the wonky books. The children were here a while back, and so yeah, anything to do with children's literature, getting them to read, I'm up for it.
Sense that you touched upon about that children are here, and it just makes you feel happy that they touched the book, they were playing around, the joy of reading that would spread. It just makes me feel happy, and thank you so much for making sure that children get it every single day. So thank you for both of you for joining in, and now I would like to introduce you all to our lovely audience. So I will start with Sonia Mehta. Sonia Mehta is a children's writer who believes that sparking of children's imagination opens up a world of adventure. She has been writing for children for over 2 decades. Her body of work is wide range. She created on India's first dedicated children's newspaper section, conceptualized the Cadbury Bonvita quiz contest for TV, and has written books, songs, poems, and stories for leading publishers in India, several African nations, the US, and the UK. Today, I feel highly privileged and I feel myself filled with honor to take your interview. I am somebody who, as a child, would love to read, and thank you for keeping this still alive.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to move on to last but not the least, Dr. Tanu Shree Singh is an assistant professor of psychology. She completed her study in positive psychology, a relatively new and promising branch of psychology devoted to cultivating contented, happy, fulfilling lives. Her passion for reading, getting more children to read, lead her to set up two libraries in Faridabad and Trihant Valley. She also supports 13 other libraries in Himachal. She is a author of Keep Calm and Mommy On. Her latest book, The Letter to Lahore, is a part of a Song of Freedom series by Duckbill, a PRH imprint. It is such an honor for us to have you, and the fact that you keep the essence of reading alive in children by setting up libraries makes me so happy. Thank you for just making sure that every child has a right book to read.
Thank you.
So now we'll move on to the questions that our audience have helped us curate, and they would want you both to answer. So my first question is to you, Sonia ma'am. How can success stories of individuals who take unconventional paths inspire parents to value non-academic activities and adopt a more balanced approach to education for their children?
Okay, so I feel in many ways the world is moving in the right direction, not looking at what is happening in the war-torn areas, but I'm talking about mental health, etc. Parents are becoming more aware. I think there is a lot to be done, of course, but when you look at the NCF and the NCF 2022 and the focus that they're giving on learning through play, one of the things that I think parents are beginning to realize is that academics is not the be all and end all of success. And around us, and the world has the social change that we are seeing, while in many areas leaves a lot to be desired. The one good thing is that's coming up is that there are many alternative professions in which children can be successful. They don't have to be doctors and engineers and lawyers. So I have around me, they may not be grand success stories yet, but they're on their way there. People who are wonderful, makeup artists who have created enormously successful careers doing that. So that had really nothing to do with the pure academic success. So when children see this, actually not children, when parents see this and they open up their minds to the fact that academic success is not the only route to being, in fact, sometimes so me feels it's not. And I think, Tanu, you will probably know more about this because you are in that space of mind wellness for children. But the kind of pressure that academics puts on children is mostly negative. I mean, I hesitate to make a sort of a broad statement like that, but I feel, for example, the fear of math, the fear of science, the fear of so many subjects. Now, the new policies are sort of allowing you to leave those aside and move on with what you're good at. So, this idea of being able to follow what you love doing and making a career and a success out of that is becoming more possible. Sharing these stories with children is, I think at this stage, first you have to share them with parents, because parents are the ones who have to really understand that it's not, academics is not the end of it. I think it will definitely help, parents and therefore children realize that there are other avenues to follow in order to be successful, in order to be more fulfilled and more happy. And yes, as authors, as people in the publishing industry, we do owe it to our readers to make these stories available. So I think it is something that we should all work on, and it will have a positive impact. Tanu, what your take?
I agree in parts, disagree in some. So the thing is, the knowledge that there are other careers out there comes with the privilege. So you have these cities and your more sort of affluent schools where the parents are still willing to sort of experiment, because they're not in a hurry for the child to start earning right away, right? Now, I teach in a college which caters to economically weaker sections mostly. And there I see that urgency, even where okay, so even the place that I'm sitting right now in Tirthan Valley, it's a very remote place. There is this boy who created really beautiful illustrations for a calendar, which was locally then, printed by an organization here called Sroth. And so I talked to them that would he be interested in pursuing arts? He's really wonderful. And maybe we can, sort of figure out an art education for him. They flatly refused that no, the family needs him to earn. He's somewhere around 17 or 18, and they said he has to be in the workforce immediately. Now so what we talk about as authors, I think we are really talking about a very small percentage of children who read English books. I write in English, and so who read English books. Whenever I come here and I get new books, the kids just look through and pick up the Hindi books, and they always tell me that please get us more Hindi books. We don't like English books. That's primarily because they're not very comfortable with the language there. So there's a lot, that needs to be done in that space. We cannot really limit sort of our limit the whole scenario to these just the main A level cities and the experiences that we have here. The majority of our country lives outside those. So how do you get the stories there? Now that is the thing. One of the sessions I did was in a very remote town in Punjab, and I was talking to the teenage children, and their again, the same problems. Now, here, the social media had reached. So the children had access to Instagram and Snapchat and everything. But the pressures were what we had when we were kids, because that's what they were there. The parents were like, oh, you have to study and you have to become a doctor or an engineer. So the kids were actually really torn between two different worlds, which were just not overlapping. So I don't know if things are getting easier now. The awareness towards mental health again is very limited to again, the more aware woke schools of the affluent cities. Not all, again, not all. You go to any sort of a lower level, lower rung school, it's a different world. Same city, completely different world. So yes, the focus of the new education policy is there on mental health. But if to say that, overall the awareness is increasing is a little optimistic as of now. There's lots to be done.
And the fact, like you said, that parents are so focused in making their children doctors and engineers. So I was somebody who was very good at when it comes to studies, and my school gave me science when I was in class 10. And I was somebody who was not the science person at all. And everybody around me just tabooed me about the fact you're so intelligent. Why are you not taking up science? Why are you taking up humanities? I got 95% in my 10th, and everybody's like, you're surely a science student. But my heart was never a science student. I was always somebody who loved history.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take art. But my parents were understanding, but I felt most of the children in my age, in my era, did not have that opportunity to switch from science then to go back
Yeah.
to humanities.
Interestingly, I mean, being a psychologist, I always thought that if I gave the a kind of a supportive environment, my kids are
Right.
going to be fine because, oh, parents are supportive. But my older son took up science with maths in 11th, and I was very surprised that why would he choose that? And I said,
Exactly.
and I think 20 days into it, he like goes and figures all his tuitions, buys his books, and I'm going to do this. And he's got all the system in place. Around 20 days later, he's like drooping shoulders and all. And I probed a bit and he said, you know what, I'm not cut out for science. I was like, why did you take it? Because the teachers, your friends, everyone expects you to, because he got a 10 on 10 GPA at that time.
Yeah,
And so it was understood that, oh, he's going to take up science.
exactly.
He switched to commerce and he was looked down upon it that, how could you do something like that? So the pressures, how we see them, are very different from what they actually are on the ground level, what the children actually go through.
Yeah,
With that thought, I think books that we write have to be an escape. Let's leave the purpose out to the academicians, and the purpose of motivation through reading about actual people. See, if it happens organically, great. If it doesn't, I would say that sometimes you read fiction and you find some characters inspirational. And I've met kids who've told me that, oh, I read that book and it kind of really helped me through a tough time. So I think as authors, our responsibility has to be to create something which is fun, which I would love to read as an author. I mean, if I write something, it cannot come from a place of, being a preachy adult who's seen the world and I'm going to tell you what's right and what's not, you know. I think as an adult, my job is to kind of maybe create a world where the child can find themselves in some corner.
right. You people as authors create a world for us that sometimes we do not receive from our parents. And when we read it and we felt, oh, that's our safe spot. So, Sonema,
Yeah,
would you like to add
exactly.
up?
No, no, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, Tanu. And but as I think I'm by nature an optimist, so somewhere I am seeing some amount of change that is happening. And again, you see that, and it confounds me sometimes because you realize that on the one part, change is happening so fast that children are having to adapt. Forget children, all of us are having to adapt to a way of life that we didn't have 5 years or 10 years ago. So, the kind of input that's coming to children is being bombarded to them. So, they're having to adjust so much more to a lot. So, there are opportunities they see, they don't have an avenue to reach those opportunities. So, it is causing a different kind of frustration in them. So, uh, there's no easy answer. And I suppose there never has been, when you think about right from the industrial revolution to the, I don't know what revolution to call this also, but it's definitely some sort of a revolution. 200 years later, we look back and say this is how society grew. But if you put the children and we look at that, on top of it, India is so incredibly diverse, you know. So you have, as you said, uh, children living next to each other. And in Mumbai, we don't have that, like, you know, down the road. It is, the contrasts are just so incredible that they have, on the one hand, they have the same opportunities. On the other, they live such completely different lives that it's hard to reconcile the
The
two.
opportunities are also very different. I mean, that they
Right.
look the same on the face of it. The opportunities, it seems that they're being given the same opportunity. They are not.
I agree.
Opportunities come with privilege.
Examples, I'll give you some
Um,
examples, which again, as I said, because I'm an optimist, I choose to look at it like that. But you know, of course, living in a big city, so we run an organization where we create books. So one part is where I write books, but the other is we have a whole team of writers, illustrators, etc. Our best illustrators come from Amravati, from you know, we don't, they're not the Delhi guys, they're not the big city guys, they're small. So the briefs that we have to give them are very elaborate, because they may not understand the meaning of the word pit. You know, there's a pit to be dug. We cannot explain that. We have to explain it in their regional language. But I see that those are also there, you know, so it's a thread. I'm trying to hang on to that thread and say that yes. But one part I totally agree with you, which you mentioned in passing, is that let's make our books fun, engaging, and let the children take from those books what they will, as long as it's a positive outcome. You know, let them, if it is supports, if it entertains, if it engages, if it comforts, it's got many things that it can do depending on the topic. Uh,
See,
as
not necessarily just a positive outcome. I think sometimes validation is very important.
no, validation is a positive
Yeah.
outcome.
If
That's
you, I mean, one of my books, Darkless, is it is dark. I mean, it talks about impending loss. It talks about chronic illness, and it leaves you hanging at the end that you don't know what happens at the end. But it talks about how you deal with that grief. That another thing that worries me is that somewhere as parents or as adults, we are trying to create a bit of a colorful world for the children. I recently met a parent who was very worried that, my child wants to read Harry Potter. Should I let them read? It was a question on one of the communities I run online. And is it okay to let them read this? So a lot of parents have responded that, first two, three books are fine, then it gets very dark. So maybe you should stop then. And maybe it could hold off or could hold off the entire series for a few years. Now my take is that, let's say, an 8-year-old, they have seen things. As parents, I think our job is to um, make it all available, be there for discussion, be there to hold their hand through it, but not just take the easy way out and say that, oh, the world is full of butterflies and nice cotton clouds. That's not true. So, a lot of books, say, for example, talking of Muskan, that is one book that I've always mentioned when we talk about difficult things. That sparked a conversation between my kids and me, that how other kids in their class were bullied because of the choices they made. And it was not an easy book to read. It was not something absolutely fun. It dealt with a very difficult, serious issue. So, not just all fun and games, but I think it has to be authentic. It could be a funny book, it could be a serious book, it could be dealing with some issues, but lay the truth out as it is in the words that would resonate with the children. I think that's uh, important, I guess.
So, as we are on the topic of saying ki how books impact children, so my next question to you, Sonia ma'am, is why do you think it's important? Why do you think it's important for us as parents and for parents to basically empower their children with reading? How does reading impact them to take decisions and share responsibilities, take challenging concept? How does the act of storytelling and reading help them?
so yeah. So you know, the number of parents who I meet, I just 2 weeks ago I did this talk on raising a reader. It's become a hashtag, raise a reader, raise a reader. So this whole thing that parents come to you very, very anxious, saying that, my child is not reading. What do I do to help? Of course, reading is important. I have no doubts about it. I mean, my mind, the people I've met, the people who are more world aware, they're more what do I say? They're more communicative. They're more in every which way. They are invariably readers. So for children, having said that, of course, it doesn't mean that a person who doesn't read is going to be a failure and a disaster and all of that. Having said that, there's definitely an edge that reading gives you, and it's an early edge. Uh, when we were kids, we were not allowed to read comics. I don't know if that was the case it was with you also, Tanu, but for us, don't read comics, read books, okay? And I used to think about that and I was just, I don't believe that in any case. I think you read anything, read newspaper headlines also. There are multiple facets to the ability to reading. One is of the mind, one is cognition, etc., etc. But I realized that one of the things that reading, this whole concept of sustained silent reading for young children, your mind is doing the work, the words are giving you the cues. So the ability, your mind is like a muscle, I feel. Like when I work out, and I started working out after some 45 years, so I realized how badly my body needed those workouts because my body had atrophied really. So like that ability for the mind to pick up words, to make sense of them, to add value to them, to imagine, to let those words take you on different journeys, is all a muscle thing that it gets inculcated when you're children. The obvious things are, of course, you read about situations, about environments, about people, about stories which you cannot ever physically go to. So you expose, your mind gets exposed to different worlds. So I feel that reading and storytelling, India has the greatest tradition of oral storytelling. So even if they don't read, this oral storytelling also, sometimes when I read to my grandchildren, I've got two grandchildren, which keeps me firmly in the space of being with children of that age group for whom I write. Sometimes even if it's a picture book, they close their eyes, because they are imagining something which may be different from what is in the picture. Sometimes, as illustrators, we create like a purple crocodile, for example. And then, my grandson, who's just about turning 4, says, "But Nani, crocodiles are not supposed to be purple. Or why does he have this?" So it raises questions, it creates curiosity on all fronts. I mean, it is unequivocal in my mind that reading is only for the better. I go with this thing that people whose children don't read or who don't read need not think of themselves as failures in life. But there's no doubt that reading gives you that edge. And as parents, grandparents, now that I'm in that space, it's a tremendously satisfying process to see the children get into books. Yes, I realize that we are privileged, but I see that even in the schools that I go to in smaller towns, I see the parents just as keen to buy the books, to expose their children to it. So that's a good thing, I feel. And yes, I would say reading is important, is good.
It is. It actually gives you an edge. So, Tanuma, would you like to add something?
Uh, I would like to take the pressure off. What has happened now is that, as Sonia correctly pointed out, that, that whole, oh, my child is not reading. Now, I had written an article long back where I had mentioned that books are not superheroes. First of all, don't sublet your parenting to books. My child is going through this. Is there a book for that? There might not be a book for everything, first of all. Second, if the child is not a reader, it's okay. It's
Right.
perfectly fine. This whole pressure of, oh, my child has to read and they're not reading and they would be left behind, that has to go. That just doesn't work. Now, having said that, yes, of course, reading is important. It's, of course, if a child reads, it's great for them, but if they don't, it's all right. The purpose of reading has to be primarily fun. Purpose of writing has to be to bring that fun to children. What they learn as they go along is just incidental. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Now, just an example, as a kid, I used to love reading Asterix. And I was nowhere near anything which was non-fiction, anything at all, any book. There was this quiz in our class, and we were divided into teams. The last tiebreaker question was, where was the first lighthouse of the world set up? I had read about that a day back in Asterix. So our team won,
Mhm.
and this is like that. So that kind of learning is fine, which is not being thrust on you. It's just happening. That's not the purpose of the book. The purpose of the book is absolute fun. And if I remember that fact, great. If I don't, I don't. So we have to, as parents, as creator, have to get out of that sort of a wheel, of a hamster wheel of, oh, I have to get my child to learn more. Oh, I have to get my child to be a genius at everything. Let them have fun. Let the books be pointless. It's absolutely fine to have a completely nonsensical book which has nothing but laughs in it. It is absolutely fine.
In fact, I would say that humor is much unsung, sort of unsung feature that people need to build in their lives. If you have humor, you have the ability to laugh. You can laugh. You can win half of life's battles. I to feel humor is like in books, in life, of course. So bringing the which is why some of these books which are just funny for no doctor's use, some of his nonsense books, why they're so lovely is because they're nonsense and they make you laugh. There's no sense to them. But there is
Just a week back, that reminds me of that. So we were talking about nonsense books. All our authors, we were a bunch of our authors, and we had a Zoom session over it, and everyone brought their favorite nonsense books. And one of the best ones was Anushka Ravi Shankar's Captain Coconut. It is insane. It is pointless. It is absolutely lovely. And it's loved by kids. Whoever I have gifted this to, they have come back and asked me, where is the second book? And so why always constantly look for things that I can add to my child, make him into something else, that 1 hour of horse riding, 6 hours of school, 1 hour of that class, 1 hour of this class, 1 hour of reading now, and in the reading there has to be some lesson. No, I disagree. No lesson.
So as we are talking about the book, so when I was a little girl, I used to read a book called Three Men in a Boat. It was not an educational book, but every time I used to read the part when they were packing for the trip, I was giggled. But that one book made me learn better spellings.
Yeah.
So just I used to read, and I have a habit of writing those funny things. So just it improved my writing also. And my mom was saying she's reading and she's writing something, so I can deal with that for life. So, but yeah, it made me a reader though. I wasn't a reader, but though I liked the book, so it made me a reader. So what I could find a better book, it had in my mind, and I started reading more.
Readers are made, I think, plainly by, first of all, access to books, which is something I saw in the valley here. There are books, children will come. At home, when parents say, "Oh, my child doesn't read," my first question is that, do you read? Are you seen reading? If you're not seen reading, please don't expect your child to read. That's not how it works. And the whole freedom of choosing a book, a 10-year-old going and, let's say, picking up a picture book which is supposedly meant for 3 to 4-year-old, it should be fine. An 8-year-old picks up a book which is okay for a 12-year-old, let them go through a couple of pages, let them decide. Then don't just outrightly say, "Oh no, you're too young for it." Let them decide. Give them that freedom. Books should be a free space. It should be an escape. It should not be that, "Oh no, I have to read this book." Or I completely hear you, Sonia, because that is something I struggle with even today, telling the parents that comics are fine.
absolutely.
Illustrated books, novels, it's absolutely fine. Why not?
And one of the things that I feel, which is where I feel educating parents becomes really more important because, and you're a psychologist. So, but one of my friends who's a child psychologist, she was telling me there are no problem children, there are only problem parents. So, one of the
Right.
pressures that you parents have, she started reading chapter books. My daughter's still not reading chapter books. That kind of ridiculous pressure you put on yourself and on the children can actually put children off reading. It can actually go the reverse way that children will resist reading. So I totally agree. Let them go at their own pace. Any reading is good reading. I mean, I'm just so firmly with that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good conversation to have.
Yeah, I think reading is just reading. Whatever you read, it's just reading. The connect with the paper and your mind all together. It's just what it is. No matter whatever you read, once you become a reader, you will go to a point of changing books and reading the right place. But at now, I think you just need to start. Whatever you read, wherever you read, just the essence once you get it, and then you become a reader.
Correct.
So my next question to you, Sonia ma'am, as we are talking about learning and reading and children all together, what do you think? What would you like to say? Why is play a good way for children to learn, and how does this make it better for a learning process for them?
Okay. Now I'm putting on a different hat. Okay. Not
Okay.
fun and games, which is, of course, important. But, this, the reality, like what Tanu has been saying, is that there is the utopia and then there is reality. And we all know that at the end of the day, you do want your children to learn. I mean, I don't mean learn academically, but you want them to grow. You want their motor skills, gross skills, fine skills, etc., to increase and improve. And so that they become confident adults, they become, they not from the point of view of success, material success, but just from human success, the ability to make friends, ability to solve problems, etc. Uh, Again, in the same vein as what we said earlier about books, when you uh, teach or you preach for this with the intention of making them learn something, they're likely to resist that learning, as we all see as the children grow. But at the same time, you do want them to learn. It's not like you want them to live in isolation and do their own thing forever and ever. You do want them, they are going to assimilate into society at some point or the other. So you do want them to learn. But the wonderfulest term I have ever heard, I feel, in this space is this idea of learning through stealth, when you learn without knowing that you're learning, because children are learning whether you like it or not, they're learning all the time. They're learning even if they're playing with a string. That's the thing about this massive word called STEM. When I heard of STEM, I said, are you crazy? Science, technology, engineering, math, and you're talking about 2 year olds, 3 year olds learning STEM. I was like, when I first heard the term, I was honestly a little outraged. I said, the world is going mad. What the hell is this? But when you observe children, they're building blocks. Like, for example, my grandkids have this product called Magna tiles. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they're magnetic tiles which just stick magically together. So these children are now learning they're learning about why the base should be bigger and the top should be narrower on their own. So that in a form is engineering. I mean, if you had to, but they're learning that without anybody teaching them that the foundation has to be the lowest, it has to be the widest, then comes a lower, da, 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 da. They are learning it through play. So I find, and I believe that especially in the early ages, later as you go, life changes, all of that. But if you build those foundational abilities to learn, to read, to enjoy, but in the early ages, which is the area that I personally like to focus on, I feel play is the best form of them learning things, because in any case, they're learning. Whether you like it or not, they're learning. So you might as well channelize play and let them learn uh, in a fun way, which they retain. So I feel that play, and again, going back to the NCF, that is the foundation of it. They are saying now whether it gets implemented, how it gets, is a long road ahead. But at least conceptually, that is the direction in which it seems to be going. Let's see. We are working. We create a lot of educational content for schools. They're all asking for more manipulatives now. They're asking for more games which are included in the books. Which is a good sign. Again, optimistically. But yes, lot to be done. But I do believe that play is the way to go, and will stay with the children for a longer time.
I would highly agree on this. Just the fact that play and learn, because the child doesn't feel I'm learning, I'm playing, and whatever comes the way, it's a bonus for the child. So now my next question is for you, Sonia ma'am. Sorry, my next question is for you, Tanu ma'am. Your latest book, The Letter to Lahore, is a part of the Song of Freedom series that explore life of children during the struggle for independence. How do you approach weaving historical narratives into your storytelling, ensuring young readers not only understand the past but also the relevance in today's context?
So the entire series, in fact, is built around the idea that the generation now doesn't know what struggles went into freedom, right? And what freedom really means. So also to kind of look at the country from a wider angle, that there were not just a handful of people who won us freedom. There were common people in all parts of the country. What were they doing? What were the children doing? That became the backbone of the series. What were the children doing during different parts of freedom struggle? Uh, Now, talking specifically about Letter to Lahore, Mr. Stokes' life was an inspiration, of the story. But if you read the book, he figures in the background. There are no long narratives dedicated to him. There is a note at the end, but it leaves a lot of questions to the children. And in fact, they have come back and said that, we got really curious about this guy. And so we Googled him, and we found out more. So it led them to that, but the idea was not to get them just curious about this particular person, but also kind of open their eyes to things outside their cities. So we got to talk about what freedom means. Whenever I go to schools, what does freedom mean to you? And they would come up with their ideas of what freedom is. Then we would talk about, do you think there is discrimination? Do you see discrimination around you? They would start with a no, that, oh no, we are all equal now. And then in the course of the direction, realize in the course of the discussion, they would realize that, oh, it does exist. And it does exist still everywhere, in every part of the city, in every part of the villages, country, everywhere. It exists. Then we sort of, go to the discussion of what can you do as a child, and how even a small part goes a long way in changing things. So, it's again, but the backbone of the story is an adventure. It's an adventure from of getting an important document from point A to point B, and the children have to get it. They have to walk through the forest. There are animals. So all that is that the focus never goes away from that. The rest of the things are very incidental, which become a talking point later. So the intent is not to educate. The intent is for them to question, for them to have fun, for them to get a bit curious and find their answers.
It was a wonderful answer. And thank you so much for both of you for joining us today at Pragati Vichar Literature Festival. The session was so insightful. It was like a long conversation, and if we would have more time, I would wish this conversation to go on and on because it was such a nice talk. Thank you so much for joining us. And I am Kavya Sharma signing off.